Welcome to On the Chain.
This article right here, Ripple CEO says SEC has hard argument to make in the XRP lawsuit as expert testimony wraps. And this is in the dailyhodl.com. Says the SEC sued Ripple obviously in December of 2020 on the allegation the company sold XRP as an unregistered security. And you know what's funny about this whole thing? And again, Jeff and I called it from the beginning. We just said this is such a weak case. But I think what's really funny to me is how the SEC is really losing a lot of steam here. So much so, you know, Gary Gensler's not out there on everything and you know, talking about the enforcement pillars. Kind of seems like we haven't seen a lot of him lately, where he was pretty much everywhere, doing office hours, you know, out there talking about this and that. It kind of seems like, and maybe it's just me, it seems like a lower profile. But the SEC, thanks to people like, you know, DAI out there and Tag and a lot of other great interviews, sleuths, and a lot of great YouTubers that have uncovered all kinds of stuff. Namely that the SEC, JP Morgan, all this stuff starting to tie together. And there's overwhelming evidence, especially not very good looks when it comes to Hinman, Clayton, and let's just say their origin law firms. There's just so much going on about that. And I'm just amazed at how this is playing out. It really is, you know, and I forgot who put it out there the other day. Someone said, we've got to crowdfund a movie. I think it was Mark Phillips. Yeah, Mark Phillips put out a tweet the other day, and he was basically saying that, you know, what we have to do is we have to put this out to be a movie made. Like, who's going to play Hinman? Who's going to play John Deaton? I don't know, man. Maybe Travolta. I've seen a couple of these where you got John Travolta on one side, and on the other side you got John Deaton from one of his roles, and it's like, yeah, I could kind of see that. Although John Deaton's a younger guy, so I'm not sure how that would work. But you never know. You never know how that's going to work. It's what's Red saying there? Chip is back in solo. Yeah, I am back, and I am solo. Yeah, last night I had a lot of family came in unexpected. Well, it was expected, but it was like a day's notice, so I had a really great time with that, and we did some fun stuff. So that's why I was out. Jeff is on special assignment. That's why he is out. So let's jump back into this article right here. Ooh, let's make it a little bit bigger. Here we go. So it says in a new interview on Fox, which we watched here, Garlinghouse says the SEC originally had no problems with the issuance of XRP, but changed its mind. And the irony is, and this is one of the things that Jeff and I talked about when that video played, is that the music, I think somebody stepped on it. And I say stepped on it, somebody was talking at the time, or it was on the outro, or the music started playing. It was kind of like glanced over a little bit. But Garlinghouse said the irony there is we were in the SEC's office. Now imagine this. Imagine, if you will, picture the scene. Picture the scene, if you will. Brad Garlinghouse in the SEC's office. Did the SEC invite him? Probably not. They probably reached out and said, hey, we'd like to come in. I'd like to have a little chat, a little chatty poo, just a little bit of chat between us. Let's have a chat. They go into the office. They're chatting up a storm. And they're in the SEC's office. And Garlinghouse goes on to say here that, the controls, Chip. I met with Chairman Clayton. Okay, check. He had no problems with the issuance of XRP, but apparently changed his mind in hindsight. So this is a kind of weird thing. So how do you reckon this and reason this with logic in a court of law? So you're going to say, like, well, here's the date we were there. Here's our notes from the meeting. Yeah, we were actually there. We showed up. We were hanging out. Never said a word about it. Never said, and this happened multiple times. Never said, well, geez, we're pretty concerned XRP security. Nothing. Zip. Nothing. Zippo. Zilch. Nada. There was nothing going on about that. And that's always kind of a weird sort of a thing there. It says, giving an update on the state of the lawsuit, Garlinghouse said there could be some decisions from the court made in the near future. Monday, the last day of expert testimony, expert depositions, case continued to move forward. Expecting decisions from the court sooner rather than later as it relates to a couple of decisions before the court. So is it just me? And let me ask this of you guys. Let me just put this out there. Is it me? Does Brad Garlinghouse seem to have a little more pep in his step? What I mean by that, and he seems like he's just got a little bit more, I don't know, bravado maybe. Maybe he's just a little bit more. He's always been a very confident CEO. And again, you can be pretty confident when you go through the last 2 years and you continue to grow the organization. And then you go ahead and do a buyback, and then your buyback is at a $15 billion valuation. And the last time we heard about it was $10 billion. So is there something going on there? Am I reading into this too much? And maybe I am. And maybe I am. And who knows? Who knows? Maybe I am. But getting back to this, he says, look, it moves slowly. I think Gary Gensler's continue to go with the narrative that crypto is the Wild West. It's not the Wild West. Are there bad actors? Yeah, there's bad actors. Now, the reason I wanted to step through this, because even though the interview is short and we heard it, there's a lot of stuff to really look at here. When he talks about, Gensler's going with the narrative about the Wild West, but who else talks about the Wild West? Is there somebody else out there in Congress? If I'm not mistaken, I think we've heard other people in Congress call it the Wild West too. Maybe the Shermanator out in California, maybe Senator Elizabeth Warren. They seem to be lockstep in that whole thing with the Wild West. Meanwhile, the real Wild West, there's too many things you could label the Wild West, right? That the Wild West was kind of self-serving law. You go into a town, you could shoot it up, and maybe you have one or two people to deal with. That's the Wild West. There was really no rules, and it changed from city to city, and it was kind of I wouldn't call it total chaos, but sometimes it was. I don't think the crypto's that at all. And the thing is, it's amazing how we keep hearing about story after story about how magically somebody stole a bunch of Bitcoin or whatever, but how do they track them down? How do they find the wallet? Well, because it's on a public blockchain. Number one, the everything is basically on the blockchain. So, but no, they talk about that. You have AML, KYC, all this stuff going on, but they still have to, continue on with their narrative, which is the Wild West, and that's not really playing. We're way past the Silk Road days, right? Ripple's CEO says he sees a lack of knowledge on how crypto really works coming from regulators and officials in Washington. And if I wanted to pick a beef with that, we see that on so many fronts. I mean, obviously, we care deeply about crypto. But I think we're seeing it on a lot of fronts where they're just not educated. It almost just seems like maybe technology moved a little bit too quick. But there's a lot of things where they just keep the blinders on, that those horses wear, and they just continue moving forward. And on that note, I don't quite see it. He says, according to Garlinghouse, the lack of understanding from lawmakers putting responsible companies in the crypto industry as a disadvantage to others. He went on to say, I think it does a disservice to responsible actors like Ripple who are working with governments with sanctions. Everything that's enforced from a sanction point of view through fiat currency, anything that Ripple does is enforced in the state the exact same way. No difference, no different level playing field. In some ways, I heard Senator Warren saying things like she felt holding crypto was a different standard. For example, expecting a blanket ban of all crypto in some of these countries. Well, can you still use PayPal? You can still use some of the other things, but I don't think we should treat them differently. And of course, there's the interview right there. We played this last week, but I thought that was important to more or less revisit, just because there's a lot of things that I just felt like were just really important. Again, it was a shorter interview than I would have liked. Would have liked a lot more questions. I thought Charlie Gasparino and Liz Clayman did a great job on that interview, although it just seemed really short to me, or it just didn't seem to be. You have someone like Brad Garlinghouse, CEO of Ripple, I think it should go on. Sometimes these segments they go on for a long time. You're like, well, I don't really care about that. But the way the news media works, everyone has a short attention span. Usually a 3 to 4 minute spot is what you get. Sometimes it's shorter than that. It's not like a talk show where you talk to somebody maybe 8 minutes, 6 to 8 minutes, but you're constantly having to move it in case it's something you don't like or topic, so you'll continue to watch the show.
Are you down with OTC? Please like, subscribe, and click the bell to be notified when the next video drops.